How's it going, guys? What's up? The deplorable Thomas Milo here from Reality Check TV, and just wanted to make a little rant session this evening. It's Saturday evening, and we are 2 days. Well, I suppose, yeah, 2 days. 2 days away from what will likely be the most watched television event in history. Think about that for a moment. The other two, think about how huge that is for a moment. I mean, and of course, if you don't realize what I'm talking about already, I'm talking about the debate of the ages between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump coming up on Monday night. To my knowledge, this is the first debate that is not subject to typical network television rules. It's going to be broadcast by tons of different media outlets. InfoWars has a stream with their commentators standing by, taking a look at it, ready to flash up some instant replay should there be anything major that goes down, whether that's in the Hillary Health Department or whether that's any number of lies or false accusations or any kind of ridiculous shit like that she could very potentially and likely will throw at Trump if she's not too doped up on drugs to do so. But think about this for a minute. The uh, I believe the most watched thing in U.S. television history, at least, is the finale of MASH, the final episode of MASH, which is probably too old a show for most people of the millennial or maybe even slightly older, even generations of people. Um, actually, it's a good show though. I believe it's on Netflix. I believe it's still on Netflix. It's a lot of fun. I actually happen to be a bit of a cultural kind of history buff, if you will, I suppose, and I love old movies and old stuff like that. So I quite enjoy going back and watching things from that era. But anyway, not to get off topic, but that had I think 100 million people. Final episode of MASH had 100 million people that watched it, and that was before the internet. That was before the internet. That was before cable as well. That was just when there was only network television. And 100 million people watch that. Think about relative to now, considering all the media that we have. What I think that means is that, I mean, this debate is more significant for a variety of reasons. There's much greater implications to our way of life here in the U.S., but also very much around the world that will come out of this debate. But still, the fact that there's so many more options that people could be taking, especially because they, of course, scheduled it during Monday Night Football, which the NFL being by far the most popular sport in America and something that's drummed up big time by big corporate companies and people who have a direct financial interest and stake in Hillary Clinton not making a fool of herself. Definitely did that on purpose. Just refer to Will Smith's movie. What was that? Concussion, I think. If you want to know about how screwed up the NFL can be and how corporatist and what kind of billions of dollars you're talking about when it comes to backing of the NFL. But in any case, I think it's backfired on them. Because if anything, I think that's going to take away ratings away from the NFL, not vice versa. And so yeah, I mean, we're projected to have about 100 million people watching this debate, which is astonishing. I think 111 million watched the Super Bowl last year, I believe. That's 111 million. I believe that was the statistic that I saw online. So we're among domestic ratings. It could very well come close to equaling that. It's likely to come very close. I wouldn't be surprised if we topped it, but at the very least, it's going to come very close. And the projections for the number of people watching it around the world is enormous. Is absolutely enormous. I've heard people make what they think to be rather reasonable expectations of 500 million people outside of the U.S. watching it around the world. England obviously with Brexit going down. A good many of them are big into Trump, and a lot of the people who were vehemently against Brexit certainly have an interest in Hillary Clinton, that's for sure. So there's going to be, I would imagine, major traffic from all of the Western European nations, certainly in Russia, where they're hugely interested in discontinuing the buildup of nuclear arms going on around their border by the U.S., sneaking them in as defense systems. You can Google that one if you want to learn more about that. That's certainly something that's been covered heavily by the alt media. So, I mean, they're certainly interested in freedom. They're under economic assault at the moment, and they have good reasons to really, really not want Hillary Clinton in office out of their own self-interest, which is a good thing. I mean, no population of human beings should want to be conquered and dominated like they were for such a very long time. They finally kicked out the oligarchs. Actually, I believe Putin helped lead the charge in that when he was lowered down the pyramid system, so to speak, within their government. But in any case, the traffic will certainly could be, at least it seems from what I'm hearing, could certainly be 500 million people worldwide. And I've heard some people even say, who knows, it could reach 1 billion outside the U.S. And that probably is on the well, I suppose, for lack of a better word, liberal side of estimation. But who knows? Boy, wouldn't that be crazy? Wouldn't that be insane if we had more than 1 billion people watching this worldwide? Think about that. Think about that for a second, because most people will never have even the chance to, whether it's being a musician or it's being an athlete or any one of those sort of occupations that will put you in front of 100,000 people at a time in an arena. That's daunting. Stand-up comics, few of them that can sell out Madison Square Gardens and things like that. Even that's extraordinary, and that's got to be daunting on some level. The fact that you, as one singular person or as a very small group of people, is the focus of 100,000. That's insane. But think about this could be many, 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 many times that. Like 600 million people total worldwide. Think about how huge that is. That ought to alone, without even going into some of the facts about what's going on, which I'm going to get into in a minute, the protests in Charlotte, the economic things that are going on right now, without even getting into all the evidence and statistics and things like that, that alone ought to tell you about how enormous the stakes are. Stakes are huge. They're bigger than they've ever been before. And it's such a huge cliche to say that this election is the most important one in our lifetime. And so I hate to use that phrase just because of how ridiculous you sound when you say it. But look at the facts. And really the whole media and popular culture in general has become about just throwing around unsubstantiated, ridiculous cliches. So that's just another one of them. But actually, if you take a look at what's actually going on here, if you do yourself the good of looking into all of these issues thoroughly, whether it's immigration, whether it's economy, whether it's any of those things, you actually take the trouble to look at the statistics, FBI statistics, immigration statistics, whatever the case may be. And then you actually take the time to go ahead and examine the people who are putting out those statistics and find out who they're being funded by and figure out where their interests lie and how maybe the way they frame the evidence to, in some of the worst cases, how they're even maybe altering the evidence or just showing you part of the evidence. How maybe, at least, I was going to use sort of a Christian Sunday school kind of a reference. uh, which might have sounded a bit silly, but the logic holds true, which is that, did you ever hear when you were a kid that that telling, maybe not telling an outright lie, but just not saying anything. Say you saw something or you did something, and you're not lying to somebody that you did or didn't do something or did or didn't see something, but you're just going to not say anything about it. You're not lying, but you're not telling the truth either. That is that idea of that's often what they do with these statistics. They're not necessarily lying to you. Well, I mean, they are. They're lying to you in how they frame the evidence, but sometimes with the statistics, they're not lying to you, but they're just telling you half the truth, or they're just not saying what's actually going on. The gender pay gap, which you'll hear me talk about all the time. You'll hear us on the Debunked podcast, which is not a regular upload yet. I do apologize. I have some good segments that I need to put up on the channel. It's hard to get multiple people who have very busy lives together on Skype to do something regularly. It's way harder than it should be. But anyway, not to get off topic, you'll hear me talk about the gender pay gap a lot. And the reason why the gender pay gap is a myth is because if you look at the statistics of most mainstream, well, not mainstream economists, you have to be careful which economists are, who they're funded by, who they work for. Alan Greenspan, for one, I believe would be considered an economist. He was the head of the Federal Reserve, which is one of the most evil institutions on earth, and how they take advantage of people, and how they bankrupt our society. And he sat there on, what was it, 60 Minutes? No, it was on a PBS interview, I think. I'll put the clip up on the Reddit page, which, by the way, all of the articles, all the evidence, all the research that I've done that has led me to the conclusions which I talk about on these rants, and anything we talk about on the Debunked podcast, you can find all the sources that we've carefully combed through on Reality Check TV. The Reddit page, the Reality Check TV Reddit page. That's reddit.com/realitychecktv. And you can tweet me at Thomas Milo on Twitter. At Thomas, that's my name. I guess my Twitter handle is RDFCFUT15. Maybe can you change your Twitter handle? Huh. I was a big FIFA player for you gamers out there, and that's RDFC Foot 15. That was my my club name. Anyway, I'm very much off topic, but anyway, I'll share the link to the Reddit page and the link in the description, so you can check out the sources yourself. But in any case, you have Alan Greenspan sitting there on PBS, this is some years ago now, saying that, basically admitting that the Federal Reserve is a privatized central bank, which has no authority that is in oversight of it whatsoever. They're not responsible to Congress. They put Federal Reserve in the title back when they had founded it in 1911 to fool you into thinking, it's Federal Reserve, oh, okay, federal government, right, okay, it's a government institution. This is not true. And so Greenspan sits there and says, "Oh yeah, we don't have to look at anybody. The Congress can't audit us. We get to do what we want. We get to set interest rates where we want them to be. We get to, in essence, which really means, what that exactly means is that we get to bankrupt you as much as we want, whenever we want." Why do you think the market they report always becomes stronger whenever the current chairman of the Federal Reserve goes, "Oh yeah, we're going to raise interest rates by the end of the year"? It's because that means the rich people get richer, the bankers get richer. That means that all the mortgages that you're trying to pay back, all the loans that you're trying to pay back, your rates go up, so they make more money. How do you think they created a bubble in 2008 that crashed? How do you think that they got all those people stuck in holes, in debt holes that they could not get out of? They kept raising interest rates, predatory loaning, all thanks to one William Clinton and Newt Gingrich to a good extent as well. I've liked Newt Gingrich in the past. I've liked things he said on TV, but let's face it, he helped Clinton pass that. He helped get the Congress on board to. Sorry, pass it. I don't even think I said what I was talking about yet. He helped Congress get on board with Clinton to repeal the Glass-Steagall Act. Those of you who are very much into politics, political history, all that kind of thing, certainly you Bernie Sanders fans out there, you guys are going to know all about this. That the repeal of Glass-Steagall is what allowed these banks to make predatory loans. It's what allowed them to, speculate on all those kinds of stuff. I mean, in essence, it's just allowing them to screw you over, to put the country in more debt, to put the government in ever increasing debt, put you in debt, to bankrupt middle class people. Not even sure how I got off into the economy stuff. Oh yes, I think you have to look into where these sources are coming from. So when it comes to something like the gender pay gap, all of the institutions, NGOs, feminist-related foundations that talk about the gender pay gap, and this is such an evil thing, the statistics they're putting out is one of those half-truths, one of those, it's not really a lie, but we're going to just, obfuscate it or frame it. We're not really, we're not going to tell you all the information. The reason why the gender pay gap is a lie, and I'll definitely go over this again in the full podcast. We'll have an entertaining discussion about it. But the reason why that's a lie is because when they show you the numbers to supposedly support the gender pay gap, they add up all the earnings of women in a year and add up all the total earnings of men in a year, and then they compare them against each other. But that doesn't. So then yeah, it looks like men make more money, and the truth is, yes, men earn more money in a calendar year than women do. But there are reasons why that is. There are reasons why that is that have nothing to do with quote-unquote chauvinism or patriarchy or any of those other things. Sexism. It does not exist in so much as it affects women's earnings in broad terms. Sure, things like racism, sexism can exist in individual people. People are weird and crazy. Of course there's racists, of course there's sexists, of course there's insane people. Hello, have you seen where we came from? We're a bunch of monkeys. We're a bunch of really, really, really smart monkeys. But monkeys are fucking crazy. We're insane. So of course there's racist and sexist people in a society. I could get into talking about the supposed crimes of the police as well, which we'll get into a bit later. But the thing that they're not taking into account is that women and men make different choices. They have different kinds of lives. There are biological differences between men and women, and I'm not trying to sit here and say women are weaker, they should get in the kitchen. No, that's not what this is about. But it is just a biological fact that men cannot bear children. Women can, and women do. And believe it or not, some women do like the idea of having children and like the idea of having a family. Because there is a love and a biological bond between family members that cannot be recreated in any other way in life. And so women drop out of the workforce earlier. And because of things like maternity leave, they don't end up working the same hours as men in the year. And by the way, I'm totally all for paid maternity leave. I think we absolutely should have that. That's, I think, something that the country can easily afford. I think it should be federally paid for. Now, Trump, especially, this is something else that all you Bernie Sanders fans should be able to get on board with, I hope, because Sanders campaigned on this big time, and I highly, highly, highly respect him for this. Just so you all know, I am, of course, a massive Trump fan. If you haven't heard a lot of the rants I put up on Reality Check before, or you haven't heard the podcast yet, know that I am an enormous Trump supporter. Love him. Great guy. Great guy. Not a racist. Not a chauvinist. Not any of those things. But I have a huge admiration, respect for Bernie Sanders voters, because it's organic politics. It's real people. The Trump people and the Bernie Sanders people are the most real, connected to reality voters that we've seen in a long time. These people have families, they have jobs, they have loved ones, they have real stakes in this. They really care a lot. They just want to be free to have something that they can care about in their life, their job. Be able to put clothes on their back, be able to feed their families, put food on the table. This is what this is about. The middle class is disappearing, and people actually are having a hard time going to the grocery store and buying food now. I know this because I have experienced it myself. And so it's organic politics. And so I disagree with Bernie Sanders on certain things. I don't, which we can go into, certainly. I think we'll probably have, I think the next podcast episode actually is going to be talking about socialism. I think there's a lot of myths about it. It's a wonderful idea, philosophically speaking. It's one of the most wonderful ideas that people have come up with in terms of philosophy. If you listen to people who love socialism, there's some of the most wonderful people, some of the most wonderfully spirited human beings you'll ever meet. Total respect for them, total respect. But where socialism came from is not a good place. I don't want to get into that now, or I'll end up the way I rant. I'll end up down a black hole from which we'll never get back to the gender wage gap problem. But where was I? Where was I on this? I lose my train of thought frequently. All these details about all these things are so intimately connected. It's okay, right. Anyway, so Bernie Sanders is for paid maternity leave. Well, so is Trump. I think they're going to go about doing it a little bit differently, and in this particular issue, I believe, you can correct me, Bernie Sanders people, comment below, correct me, tweet me, let me know if I'm wrong about this, but I believe Bernie was wanted it to be a federally paid program. Or maybe he did want to have the corporations pay for it. I don't know. There's advantages, there's pros and cons, whichever way you do it. But Trump, if you don't know, recently gave a policy speech. Where did he do it? I can't think of where he did it. But he gave a policy speech on his child care plan. And he outlined all the different tax deductions you're going to get for having children, all the savings accounts that they're setting up for families to be able to deduct from their taxes and store away money that will be tax-free for the cost of raising children. And one of the big parts about it is paid maternity leave. Corporations are going to be federally mandated to pay their workers' salary while they're on maternity leave. So we need those kinds of things. Anyway, so as this relates to the gender pay gap problem, that's why women have less earnings, because of many just lifestyle reasons like that are either unavoidable or just down to their personal choices. That's the point of having a free and open society, is that people can make their own choices as to what's best for their own life and aren't penalized for doing so, and they are provided with the ability to have enough personal wealth to be able to do so comfortably. So women make different choices. They make different choices in what career paths they go into. Feminists will complain all the time about why they're underrepresented in sciences. There is nothing that is not encouraging women to go into sciences. There is not a single thing, institutionally, that tells women that they should not go into science. That's absurd. There is no such thing. What do you see? Do you see foundations out there saying women shouldn't go into science? Do you see NGOs out there saying that? Do you see the government out there saying that, oh, well, women perform at a blah, blah, blah less rate because of such and such reasons, statistics show that women shouldn't go into science? No. You don't find those things because they don't exist, because on a large scale, nobody in this country is stupid enough to believe something that absurd. And so when, generally what are leftists, but I don't really like the leftist right left terms, but when these social justice foundations activists sit there and tell you that does exist, you should laugh at them in their face, because it's not true. It's ridiculous. It's the most easily provable, it's the most easy thing to disprove ever. So if that's not the case, then there must be another reason why women don't go into the sciences. Probably because they must not have the taste for it. And when they do go into the sciences, they're paid the same wages for an hour of work that men are. When it's not, they're getting paid at the same rate that men are. They just work less. And that's okay. And women who don't choose to have families, who do choose to dedicate themselves to their career, whether it's in sciences or technology or whatever else the case may be, plumber, I don't know, whatever is your thing. Whatever they choose, they make the same money as men doing that job. They absolutely make the same. That's the thing. If you actually look at the economy statistics, by the hour, women are paid the same as men. It's just because they add up total earnings at the end of the year, and they go, here's this total and that total. Men make more. There you have it. Institutionalized pay gap. That's not true. That means you'd have to pay women more than men in order to have the yearly earnings be the same. And that's totally sexist. That you're defeating your own argument by saying that. That's totally absurd. That's insane. That's just like the leader of Black Lives Matter, Toronto, not too long ago, posting on Twitter this long post, or Facebook, or whatever it was, one of the social media networks. It made its way across all the platforms, but making this argument that white people are inferior because of the lack of melanin in their skin. Literally saying that white people are biologically inferior to black people. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. No, as a matter of fact, don't correct me if I'm wrong, because if you think I'm wrong, you're an imbecile. Because that's the same logic that slave owners used. That black people were biologically inferior to white people. Isn't that what racism is? Isn't that the definition of racism? That you believe that one ethnicity is superior to another ethnicity because one of the ethnicities is smarter than the other, or somehow is innately more gifted or intelligent than the other, or is just just better in any way. In this case, she seems to be saying physically, biologically. I'll find it and I'll post it up on the Reddit page so you can read it for yourself. So you want to talk about hate speech? That's some hate speech right there for you. And I guess that segues me right into talking about what's happening in Charlotte. Also, what I'll put up on the Reddit page, reddit.com/realitychecktv, is I'll put up Paul Joseph Watson's breakdown and analysis of what's been going on in Charlotte. Everyone should watch this video. Everyone should watch this video. And I'm definitely going to put up lots of videos of this nature, of other people who break this down, because Paul Joseph Watson has all the video clips and footage. I believe both of the shooting that happened with what in the hell is, I want to say Mark Lamont Hill, but he's a TV pundit and analyst. Keith Lamont, is that his name? I've been reading all the stories about this and doing the research for the last 2 days. How can I have forgotten his name? Huh. Oh well. You know who I'm talking about, though. The guy had a gun. The guy had a gun. Paul Joseph Watson points it out in the footage. CNN cut the footage and lied about it, saying he had a book. The police searched his car. They searched his body. They didn't find a book, but they found a gun. In fact, he was holding a gun. You can see that he was holding a gun in the footage. Go to Infowars.com. They have the video. Breitbart probably is linked to the video. I'm sure you can find it a number of places. You certainly won't find it on CNN. How absurd are CNN? I mean, that ought to reveal how controlled the media are. They're trying to stir up such a drama over this, and not to say that it isn't dramatic. I mean, it's pretty horrific. But they're trying to stir up a different drama about it. They're trying to stir up their own narrative about it. And it was a black cop who shot him anyway. Notice nobody's talking about that. In a city that has an African-American police chief. But just utter crap. He had a gun. You mean to tell me that if someone is running at you with a gun, or is acting in a threatening manner and is holding a gun, and you have the ability to protect yourself and defend yourself, and you have a gun, that you're not going to save your own life? I know there's going to be some pacifists who are going to sit there down in the comments and say all kinds of crap. I have one friend, and he's one of my dearest friends, a brother to me. I love him to death. But he actually tries to make the argument that he wouldn't. He also tries to make the argument that that having a taser is just as effective against someone with a gun as having a gun is, and that's the pacifist route. You cannot kill them, which is absurd. How fast do you think a bullet is compared to a taser? It's pretty much it's not even a question. So that's absurd. So there will be some poor people, truly poor people who are so brainwashed that'll sit there in the comments and say, who will probably tweet me and go, oh, of course I wouldn't defend myself. I couldn't take another human being's life. It's called self-preservation, stupid. It's how we got here. You wouldn't be sitting here if your ancestors didn't have that instinct to preserve their own life. You mean you don't want to live? Has the regressive left turned our existence into such a pitiful one, such a sad, sorry, pathetic one? Have they bankrupted us so much, both of our money and of our dreams and ambitions, that you would rather let someone kill you than defend yourself? It's ridiculous. So what's going on in Charlotte is horrible. And by the way, the police have checked all the IDs of these people. They've done background checks on a lot of these rioters. And they are rioters. This is not a peaceful protest. Paul Joseph Watson breaks down in his video how the networks are sitting there with their cameras going, oh, it's a peaceful protest, people are hugging. No, the gangs are going around beating up solitary white people for no reason. They're beating up solitary white people because a black cop shot a black man who had a criminal history, who was acting in a threatening, violent manner holding a gun. There's some logic for you. Real logic. But this guy was in a parking garage. The video that's circulating online, this white guy was going to his car in a parking garage, and it must have been a gang of like a dozen people just jumped him. They throw him down to the ground and start just kicking him in a circle. It's horrific. I can't even watch this footage myself, and I want to go vomit. It's the most awful thing, most violently horrible thing you could ever imagine. A Somalian guy in the middle of a mall yelling whatever the hell it is that they yell. What in the hell is that stupid dumbass shit they yell? Like something, they're yelling Allah or whatever it is they yell. And going up to people and asking them if they're Muslim, and if they're not, he shanks you in the heart. I guess that's as bad. But at least he was one dude. Having a knife isn't so good, but a retired cop who was armed eventually shot him. A lot of these poor people who are getting dragged out of their cars in Charlotte weren't so fortunate. There wasn't a cop there to take care of the situation. There were plenty of police there in riot gear, and so far I've heard they've conducted themselves quite well. But think about this. A black police officer shoots a black man who had a criminal history, who was holding a gun, behaving in a threatening, violent manner, and he's shot by the police. And this guy's brother says to the news cameras, he says, that they asked him for a comment, he goes, hey, you know what? All white people are devils. All white people are devils, and all police are devils. All white people are devils because a non-white person shot another non-white person who had a criminal history? That's some real logic. That doesn't make any sense. An action happened that was caused by a scenario of events, a sequence of events, and you're blaming it on an entity or several members of what we'll look at as a whole, I guess the white population. You're blaming it on an entity that was not present at this crime, at this event, that was not involved in this event, that had nothing to do with this event. That doesn't make any sense. If like Hillary Clinton, I was one of her aides, and I picked up an orange and rolled an orange to her. You can look this up. There was some event that happened where her reporters were only allowed to ask her questions by rolling an orange to her. How bizarre is that? This really happened. It's on footage. The video's somewhere online. I'll have to track it down for you guys. I wish I had a producer. Boy, would that be fun. If we had a producer, oh boy. Oh boy, the evidence would be coming in thick and fast. Thick and fast. But anyway, if I picked up and rolled an orange, an action happened, and there was a cause of that action. There was an orange, and it was rolled at somebody, and I was the cause of that event happening. And so what if I did that, and then I took a look at Joe across the room, and I said, Joe, what the fuck are you doing rolling oranges? Joe was standing across the room. Or what if Joe wasn't even in the room? That would be more similar to this scenario. Joe was in Florida. And so I called up Joe on the phone and asked him what the fuck he was doing rolling oranges at Hillary Clinton. And Joe is an entity that's not even remotely related to this event. That does not make any sense. That does not make any sense. And so, getting back to what I said earlier, these rioters are coming from out of state. This is not as though the city of Charlotte has this history of violence against black people and their constituency, them as a whole, they are going, this is enough, we're done with this, we're going to protest this. That's not what's happening. These are activists, outsiders, who are coming into the community and causing violence. They broke into the Charlotte Hornets team shop. They smashed their windows and were looting the place. Most of the people who play for the Charlotte Hornets, most people who play in the NBA are black because they can jump higher than white people. How on earth is that? And people say, oh, that's racist. How is that racist? That's a goddamn compliment. I wish I could jump that high. Are you kidding me? I wish I was that tall and could jump that high. I'd make $1 billion playing in the NBA with endorsement deals. Are you fucking crazy? It's not racist in the least. It's a compliment. That's why I love to watch them play basketball. Jesus Christ. And so they're raiding and looting places and breaking into stores and damaging buildings where black people live. Anyone notice when there was the protest in Milwaukee that the sister of the guy who was killed there sent on cameras? And she was saying to go burn down the white neighborhood. So, I mean, it's not like this person is a peaceful individual by any stretch of the imagination. But she at least had some sense in her because she says, what the fuck are you people doing? Why are you burning down our neighborhoods? We need our shit. I think she said something about their hair stores or their attachments they use for their hair, their style. She goes, we need our shit. We need our stuff in this community. Why in the hell are you being violent in our neighborhoods? If you want to blame white people for the problems, why are you attacking other black people? I'm pretty sure there was another protester that died in Charlotte as well, right? He was shot. I think they tried to claim he was shot by police. He wasn't. He was shot by another protester. Total insanity. And so where are these activists coming from? You might wonder. Well, they're being funded to be there. I think they probably stopped using Craigslist as a way of advertising these events because that happened earlier. We saw they were paying people on Craigslist. George Soros just gave $500 million to Black Lives Matter. $500 million. The Ford Foundation about 3 weeks ago gave them another $100 million. I mean, really, the writing was on the wall that another major protest was about to happen because the money was coming in. George Soros paid for D. Ray McKesson's mansion. His mansion, D. Ray McKesson's mansion, is owned by a board member of one of Soros's NGOs that works to, quote unquote, address racial inequality in this country. But in fact, they are, and this you just have to look at the source documents, and these documents, these reports are already up on the Reddit page for sure, because I put them there several days ago now. That Soros has been bankrolling them, and his leaked emails talk about the racial division that they're trying to create in this country. They've been lobbying Obama to use executive actions to drastically alter the way police go about their job so that black people are subject to more violence themselves, and so that it also creates further division between the black community and the police and the white community and all the various constituencies in this country. Go look at the emails. Many of these things are memos from their board meetings. These are documents that were written surmising what their next steps were going to be after their meetings, what their plan of action. We have their plans. We know what they're trying to do. They're trying to create violence. We have FEMA. No, not FEMA. We have the United Nations. FEMA's involved in other things, but other bad re-education camps. That stuff's real, by the way. U.S. military memos say that they're going to establish re-education camps. There is a U.S. military document that was released that gives them the authority to destabilize cultures and societies wherever in the world they please, whether that be domestic or abroad. And it's illegal for the U.S. military to operate on U.S. soil anyway. I mean, the Constitution, they basically lit in fire, pissed on it, and flushed it down the toilet. You know, we don't really, Congress is clinging on for dear life to the last remnants of the Constitution. They're clinging for dear... Anyway, to finish my point about United Nations before I go into the congressional oversight, which is also crazy. Definitely going to put up a list of video links on the Reddit page. Reddit.com/realitychecktv. Definitely going to put those up on the Reddit page. There's great clips. Representative Jason Chaffetz from Utah is an absolute superstar. He is a man with cojones, as is Trey Gowdy from South Carolina. Boy, is that guy smart. He is smart as a whip, and he is not afraid. I believe his name is Jim Gordon, Representative Gordon from Ohio. He's also, boy, is he a good one. My God, he's got balls. There's some great clips of them taking on Hillary Clinton in the Benghazi oversight hearings. And you can tell Hillary's a psychopath. She's sitting there as Gowdy and Gordon and Chaffetz sit there and just absolutely destroy her on the evidence. They expose her lies right in front of her. All the lies of her staff about the stupid video that they tried to blame it on. And they pin it right there on her. They expose all of it. They have all the evidence stacked right in front of her. And she's just sitting there with her, her chin resting in her hand, which is propped up by her elbow sitting on the table, with a casual smirk on her face. She does not give a fuck. She knows nothing's going to come of it. She knows the Department of Justice is going to give her complete immunity. They're not going to prosecute her, and they know that Obama will pardon her. The latest FBI release of emails, which they're finally releasing, probably because Chaffetz is because he's sent a subpoena over to them to release it to Congress. They're actually taking a little bit of heat now, finally. Congress, the Oversight Committee, is throwing some fastballs their way. They're sick and tired of this shit. Thank God. It's about time someone was. But the latest installment of Hillary emails that the FBI has released, and this isn't even WikiLeaks. What Assange just got is absolute gold in terms of material. But, this is maybe what a lot of people, a lot of naysayers and skeptics would have to admit is legit. These released by the FBI. And these emails show, many of these emails are from Obama to Hillary, and he's using a pseudonym. He didn't even use his name. What on earth kind of secrecy could they have needed to maintain in order for that to be required? What kind of nasty shit are they trying to hide that he would have used a pseudonym? I haven't researched the emails yet. I'll have to do that. I'm sure I'll want to record a rant on that. I'll have to have those, have all that research straight before we film the podcast. or do our next Sean in the Car segment. I think you guys will like that segment. Sean Head's a busy man, dear friend of mine, and very smart guy. Very smart guy. He and I don't always agree. We actually don't agree on Trump's child care plan. We don't agree on paid maternity leave. He's not for it. I'm definitely for it. But he's a busy guy, so he frequently Skypes in to the show from his car. So it's Sean in the Car. Pretty basic name, I guess, but hey, I mean, we like to call it as it is. We like organic things, reality. That's what it is. Sean in the Car. Anyway, totally off topic, but yeah. So I mean, yeah, I did want to. I better finish it off before I go back down another Pandora's box. But United Nations is established the Strong Cities initiative, and this brings in foreign operatives and UN representatives to come in and train our police how to deal with these matters, de-escalation, things like that. And that doesn't sound like the worst thing in the world. And there's probably elements of that aren't such a bad thing. But it also says that we'll have permanent UN representatives in our communities. If you read the Soros emails, you realize that this is not just what they're saying it is. This is not to reduce violence. It's to make the police toothless. Just go read the memos. I should probably read a couple of them. I have some of the articles up here. Let me see if I can pull a couple of them up. Maybe if I can find some of those quotes, I'll read some of them out loud. I don't mean to spend the entire night on Black Lives Matter, because there's such awful things happening economically that is really the hammer blow of the globalist plan to bankrupt people, which they fully admit to. That's other parts of the Soros memos. You can check out the Federal Reserve. I mean, they absolutely intend to do all these things. I have to find, there's too many documents on the computer. I have to find Google Drive folder. I don't know where that went. Where did that go, huh? Where on earth did that go? Who knows? Hey, it's hard when you have a busy life. Very, very, very hard. Don't mean to make you guys sit here and listen to me. Maybe I'll have, maybe next time I will have, maybe next time we do the podcast, I'll have a lot of these quotes prepared. And I'll have them all pulled up on the screen, ready to go. I'll open up some of these. But I should get into to some of the economic stuff before I wrap it up here. Don't want to make this too long. Oh God, yeah, I just saw another one of the memos. There's internet stuff going. You know what? Let me talk about the internet for a moment, because that is maybe even scarier than what's going on with the economy in the short term. In the short term, it's terrifying, because Obama signed over control of the internet to the United Nations. And as much as I despise Ted Cruz, I don't want to despise Ted Cruz, but I despise that he financed his campaign with Goldman Sachs, which is one of the main banks that's leading this economic assault on American people and people worldwide as well. A lot of the stuff, especially the economy, isn't even just about the U.S. The U.S. just happens to be one of the last bastions of some freedom. A lot of populations around the world have already been destabilized. In Venezuela, they're eating zoo animals. They're going into zoos, breaking into zoos, and killing animals and eating them because there's no food. You want to talk about a survival instinct? There's a survival instinct right there. There's probably going to be cannibalism in Venezuela soon. I'll bet that some of that's already happened. Anyway, back to the internet. this agreement. Oh yeah. Anyway, so about Ted Cruz, he endorsed Trump today as well, which is totally because he's ruined his political career in this through all the lies that he made throughout this campaign. The fact that it's been exposed that he financed this, that he financed his campaign with Goldman Sachs, and his wife now works at Goldman Sachs. Anyway, he's leading the charge in Congress to get this deal reneged. He's leading the congressional charge to say fuck you to the United Nations and keep the internet within the domain of the United States. And that's a good thing. I'm sure he's doing it for a self-serving reason. I mean, he loves to do these kind of superstar heroic acts in Congress, like, what was it he did? He filibustered on the floor of the Senate for like, what was it, like 24 or 25 hours straight or something ridiculous like that. You can't go take a leak. You do that. He must have drank no water on purpose. Imagine he probably must have had to fast on food and water for a long time if he was planning on doing that, because you can't go take a leak. That would be the worst part to me. I could probably get through the lack of sleep. That you could do. That's totally doable. You could even take caffeine pills or something. You could probably even have stuff like that in your pocket and take it with some water while you're up there. You could probably do that. Stay awake all night. Or maybe you don't have to stay up all night though. Is it 25 hours straight? Maybe they end the session of Congress and you have to start with what was going on the previous day. So anyway, I'm not intimately familiar with all of the congressional rules regarding that. But to get past that, I don't care what reason Ted Cruz is trying to stop this for. I'm sure it's self-serving. That's the kind of guy he is. But I'll take anybody doing it for any kind of reason right now, because the ramifications of not having control of the internet anymore are terrifying, because in these leaked Soros memos, they talk about the fact that anyone who does not express an opinion that is not either sponsored or originated by or in agreement with his NGO organizations will be censored from the internet. Doesn't matter if you support Bernie Sanders, doesn't matter if you're a progressive socialist, doesn't matter if you're the most conservative person on earth, doesn't matter what in the hell you are. You will be censored from the internet, and there will be no other opinions that will be present on the internet. And, people want to make the case when there's an uproar every time Twitter bans somebody for expressing their opinions, that they're a private corporation. They can make their own rules. They're not subject to the First Amendment. Well, I would argue that yes, they are, because in our day and age of technology, being able to express yourself on the internet is tantamount to being able to express yourself. Newspapers are extinct. Print media is extinct. If you're trying to spread word by word of mouth, it's like trying to sail in a wooden ship across the Atlantic compared to, a few hours flight. The word will never get out there. It's effectively making you an unperson. In any case, where's the quote in here from Soros about the internet? I guess this has some ramifications for TPP as well. Probably something to do with it. But this is you'll find it on the Reality Check TV Reddit page. It's a Breitbart news article. Leaked memo. Soros Foundation eyed stronger internet regulation in TPP negotiations. Okay, that's right. I remember I did this research a bit ago. Sometimes I forget some of the details, Going through so many articles a day, plus, have my own life, just like everyone else does. Unfortunately, I can't fight globalism on a full-time basis like people like Alex Jones can, or Breitbart can. It's not my career. Hey, but it's going to be all of our careers pretty soon if we don't get this right. If Hillary Clinton gets in office, I'm either going to move to Texas and hope that they secede. They passed a law to be able to print their own currency based upon the gold standard, which I do believe that they will do if it becomes necessary. And the U.S. military is not going to take action against their own. So, they're the 8th largest economy in the world, something like that, Texas. So, they could very easily march in with the National Guard and nationalize all the ExxonMobil oil reserves, all that stuff, and they would easily have the resources and money to be able to keep their sovereignty. And that would be the only bastion of freedom left in the world. So, yeah, hell yes, I'll move there. Um, anyway, um, a leaked document from George Soros' Open Society Foundations reveals the organization was seeking to influence the positions of Latin American governments in negotiating the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, or TTP. Soros' organizations wrote these agreements practically. His NGOs are so far-reaching in every segment of society, and he's by no means the one guy. Sometimes people do focus on him too much and make him the boogeyman for everything. He's certainly one of the major players. I mean, there's not a whole lot of people more influential than him when it comes to this stuff. He's certainly one of the chief evil dudes. I mean, it's quite admitted that the villain Inspector, the recent James Bond film, is based upon him. A lot of people have talked about that. And the language in TPP and all these things talk about, that they try and play it off as this, it's for human rights activism, for keeping people safe and all this. But censorship is not safe. It allows them to control the narrative. When you pass things like this, it doesn't make you safer, because then you literally have no more influence on the narrative. Do you really think that human beings are such angels that, given that kind of power, that they'll do good things with it? Are you really that naive? Leftists are so happy to demonize people for being transphobic and homophobic and xenophobic and whatever the hell else they say. And so if you're actually going to accuse the human race of being so flawed in that way, and you don't want to give them power, you think that you guys are biologically, physically, intellectually superior to them? What makes you that? What innately makes you a better person? What innately makes you different? There's nothing that you can representatively say makes you more moral than them. So if you don't want to give them that kind of power, why would you want to give it to these people that have the economic power to influence and dominate things in the way that they already do? Just from a philosophy standpoint, from a logical standpoint, that makes no sense. It makes no sense. Why would you hand a small group of people that kind of power? That was the point of democracy. That's the point of democracy. This is the thing that we'll get into when we talk about socialism on the Debunked podcast, is that, socialism is a wonderful, philosophically, as an idea it is, in that it's conceived by regular people who are progressives, Bernie Sanders fans. It's conceived out of this wonderful spirit to be your brother's keeper. And that is what built some of the greatest societies. Actually, socialism as an economic model was invented by the Founding Fathers. It was invented by Americans. That's how all of our schools' education systems started. That's how everything was funded. That's how healthcare was funded in this country in the early days, because people came together and pooled their money on the community level, and that neighborhood decided what was best for them. And if you didn't like it, then you moved to the next village or town or city. And you could pick out where you wanted to live that catered to your interest and to what would benefit you most. And and then you would also have, political action was so encouraged in that day that if you became an activist, you could end up having, a certain amount of sway in what's going on, and how your health care was provided, how your children were educated. Anyways, foundations like this should not be able to influence legislation. This particular leaked memo talks about how they wanted to influence governments in Latin America. during these TPP regulations over the internet. Quote, over the past few years, the governments in Latin America have started to regulate the online environment, mainly driven by the need to implement trade agreements. That said, this quote-unquote regulation trend is set to further accelerate in the coming years as the internet penetration rate is predicted to jump over 50%. This presents a good opportunity for civil society to help set standards and influence legislation in compliance with the Inter-American Convention on Human Rights. Just take a look at what's going on in Latin America. Just have a look. We already talked about Venezuela just a bit ago. Disaster. I know people who've been to Brazil. It's a disaster. You don't even have to follow sports or European football to know that when the World Cup happened in Brazil in 2014, there was massive riots and protests going on in Brazil because people were starving in the streets, and they were so upset that their government would choose to spend millions upon millions on hosting a tournament instead of actually maybe trying to feed them or take care of them in some way. So you think that regulations or initiatives taken up by governments in Latin America that clearly, demonstrably, provably do not care about taking care of their citizens, having any regard for the standard of health, the standard of living whatsoever in those countries, you think that we should follow their initiatives? That's a good idea? Opportunity for civil society to help set standards and influence legislation in compliance with the Inter-American Convention on Human Rights. Written up by who? Did you write this Inter-American Convention on Human Rights? What these people define as human rights is certainly not what you and I would define as human rights. Bill Clinton, with the help of Hillary and members of Congress, helped pass the prison reform bill, which mandated that there would be compulsory sentences for individuals violating laws which were already ridiculous laws to begin with, but having to do with innocuous things like marijuana possession. And they knew that that would affect the African American community at a highly disproportionate rate. Black people already lived and still do live in so much oppression. It's a different kind of oppression than they want to tell you about. It's not done by middle-class white Americans. That's not who's doing the oppression. The black community is targeted in so many ways by the government and by these kind of, globalist, quote-unquote, human rights conventions that they write. It's not even funny. If I go into all the evidence now, we'll just be here forever. I'll put some stuff up on the Reddit page about it. But there's, the CIA admittedly has been trafficking drugs in places like Chicago, most especially, but in cities that are notorious for their large African American populations for a long time. Just go look at the Iran-Contra deal. People love to tear down Reagan for that one, and yet nobody talks about the fact that Oliver North admitted before a federal court, just was like, yeah, we're selling drugs in Chicago to finance weapons deals that nobody knows about. Yeah, we're just doing that. And then you put them in prison when they buy the drugs. The government then puts them in prison after they sell them the drugs. For buying the drugs, they put them in prison. How insane is that? So you already, and when it comes to the marijuana possession, this mandatory sentencing, think about it. Weed isn't even damaging. In fact, it's probably one of the greatest miracle drugs that we have in existence. It's a fucking plant. A lot of these big drug companies are now pouring hundreds of millions into an anti-marijuana campaign in Arizona, since Arizona is about to legalize it. So evil. But you take a community that's already oppressed, and these poor people just want to smoke a little weed so that maybe they can get by in a day. Maybe provide them just a little bit of peace, a little bit of escapism, and probably make them healthier in a lot of ways. Yeah, I know smoke isn't great for your lungs, but the other neurological benefits of marijuana can be fantastic. Unless you're already afflicted with mental disorders like schizophrenia, things like that, it can make it worse. But marijuana and many THC has helped cure cancer. Fighters use CBD oil and they rub it on their joints. It's one of the best anti-inflammatory drugs in existence. It's several times more powerful than Advil. Look it up. So you take people who are just trying to help themselves a little bit after you've done nothing but oppress them, and then you're putting them in jail for trying to make their life a little bit better. That's really fucked up. That's really evil. That's why I think Hillary Clinton's a psychopath. I mean, there's a ton of reasons why I think she's an evil, maniacal, crazy person. And she is. We're going to make a special episode before this election happens, the case against Hillary Clinton. And it's taking a massive amount of research just because there is so much that woman has done, that crazy, bloodthirsty zombie nutcase has done to hurt people in her life, that it is very difficult to keep all the information straight. I got to sit down with a notepad and paper, find all the sources, find all the eyewitness accounts. There's great books. Go read Roger Stone's The Clintons' War on Women. It's banned on CNN and MSNBC, and I've already talked a little bit how much the mainstream media is owned by the Clintons. The DNC leaks emails, if anyone's kept up with that, I'll put some of those excerpts on the Reddit page. That's a good thing to put up, I think. Shows direct exchanges between Jake Tapper and Donna Brazile, who, of course, they now make, they supposedly use Debbie Wasserman Schultz as a scapegoat, but then Hillary hires her right afterwards. It's totally fine, We're going to have her step down. We're admitting that she did something fucked up, so we'll have her step down, but she can come work for me, because, how does that, there's no logic in that. So we'll have one of the people who is implicated in the emails as well. I mean, what kind of insanity is this? But anyway, there's scripts that the Clinton campaign sent over to CNN. They sent scripts to CBS telling them what they can and can't talk to Julian Assange about. That was a little bit longer ago. But it's been known for a while that they control the media. So really, all you have to do is go to the opposite of what they say, and you'll find the truth. So Roger Stone's banned on all these networks. If the Clintons are sending them scripts and telling them what to do, and they ban Roger Stone, don't you think that Roger Stone must be saying some shit that scares the living hell out of the Clintons? That's logic for you. That's a cause and effect. The Clintons own the media. We can prove that. They tell the media what to do. They set their agenda for them. And along comes somebody who has a lot of information, a lot of proof, hundreds of eyewitness accounts, hundreds. Flight records, IRS, audit patterns, you name it. You name it. Stacks of proof that would tear Hillary Clinton down in a second if anyone read it. And a lot of people have. It's why one of the reasons why Trump has such massive support. And then the Clintons, feeling threatened by that and their own self-interest, make all the networks ban them. That is a easily traceable line of logic that exactly matches up and explains that sequence of events. Much of it, all the elements, we can prove of it anyway. That's insanity. So anyway, go read Roger Stone's book. Peter Schweitzer, who writes for Breitbart as well, has Clinton Cash, which has now actually been made into a graphic novel by Chuck Dixon, who wrote a lot of the old Batman comics. I hear it's fantastic. I really would love to get it and read it. I really would love to read that. Sounds like fun. Cassandra Fairbanks posted a picture of her with her copy. I think it was her, unless I'm fairly certain, unless I'm thinking of somebody else. Maybe I'll tweet her, see if she likes it. Anyways, where were we with this? Yeah, anyway, I mean, you have to check out the sources and check out the evidence because it's all there. Lots of this is up on the Reddit page. I've checked the sources, checked all the emails, and it supports all of this. I didn't really get to the economy in the same way that I wanted to. I probably takes a whole episode, multiple episodes, to talk about what the Federal Reserve is doing, what they've done, why privatized central banks are the worst thing for an open society. You will never have a free society as long as you have a privatized central bank. In fact, the history of this country is can be boiled down in essence to very simply a battle between us, between the government and the centralized private banks that have ruled us for portions of our existence. We've been able to cast them. What's unique about the United States is that we've been able to cast them off for certain stretches. Andrew Jackson did it successfully. But it all goes back to the central banks and currencies. A radio guy named Michael Rivero, I hope I'm not screwing up his name, made an unbelievable video about this. I mean, if people were to really circulate this video and see this, it's the death of the globalists. It is the death knell of their existence and their power if this is circulated. So perhaps of any of the things that I mentioned on the Reddit page, this is the most important one. Please share it on Twitter. Please show it to your friends. He went and tracked down, did all the research, probably better than I have it or could, and I was articulated it perfectly. Started with the Revolutionary War, which was really started because we didn't want to be beholden to this private centralized bank in England owned by the Rothschilds. We didn't want to have to be subject to the whims of the Rothschilds. The Stamp Act and the Tea Act and all this stuff also went into it. That was very much part of it. Taxes were a part of it. But it was the currency and interest rates that really kicked off the war. A lot of people don't know that. Of course, the education system is so indoctrinated now, you'll never hear that in school. But go watch his report. He found the quotes and the evidence and the writings of Benjamin Franklin. He goes right through history. Every single war we've had in our country was started because of a privatized central bank. I think I'll do another rant on that either tomorrow or the next day. We might be doing a Sean in the Car segment here pretty soon. I'll talk about that with him perhaps, and we'll talk about this on a debunked podcast as well, especially when I have one of my dear friends, Anders, on, who is a big Bernie Sanders fan. Definitely more of a socialist point of view, philosophically speaking, and we'll have oh my gosh, it'll be a rousing good time. But I do want to outline some of the problems with a centralized bank. I'm almost at 75 minutes here, so I do want to sign off here in a second. So I won't go into all the details now for the sake of brevity, even though this video has not been brief whatsoever. But do go check out Michael Rivero's video. All the proof, information, evidence you're looking for is definitely in there, and I will talk about it in the next video at more length. So please hit me up on Twitter. Please do. I love to interact with you guys. Would love to hear from you guys, and probably a lot of you who maybe found your way to this video found it through my Twitter page, which I will share this video on. And so thank you for watching it. And really, it's not about me. I am doing this because I'm genuinely frightened of the prospect of a Hillary Clinton presidency. And all of this evidence that I found is genuinely frightening. Should people not wake up to the fact? And I think the fact that Trump is surging in the polls, despite the fact that many of them, their methodologies are crooked. Reuters is probably the worst, but many of them are. That she's still certainly the NBC poll. Oh, what a piece of trash. I'll go over poll methodologies too. That's really not right either. But the fact that he's surging, I think, does really show that a lot of people in this country are at least semi-awake to this. But in any case, please do hit me up on Twitter. Would love to chat with you guys about this. Send in some questions too. Tweet me some questions on Twitter, and I'll address some of them in the next video. I'd love to do Q&As. That would be amazing. Certainly we'll set up a Q&A for when we start live streaming, which will be very soon. I will let you guys know when that starts happening. I think some of your questions would make for excellent roundtable fodder for the Debunked podcast. So please send them to us. Send them to me. You can tweet me at RDFCFUT15. That's my handle. You can find me under the name Milo Thomas. I am Thomas Milo. Oh my God, I can't even get my own name right. Wow. I must be tired. No wonder it's 11 o'clock at night. In any case, tweet me at Thomas Milo, the deplorable Thomas Milo. I love being deplorable, don't you? It's delightful. It's so much more interesting. Um, anyway, so I think we'll wrap it up with that. Hit me up on Twitter. Would love to chat with you guys. RDFC Foot 15, RDFC FUT 15, the deplorable Thomas Milo, broadcasting to you on the Reality Check TV YouTube channel. Check out our Reddit page at reddit.com/realitychecktv. Thank you for listening. Until next time.